Why is it that when you cared the most, they cared the least? When you called, they were busy. When you texted, they took hours. When you showed up, they relaxed. But the moment you pulled back, the moment you went quiet, suddenly everything changed. Now they're watching. Now they're wondering. Now they feel it. Why? Why does your silence hit harder than all your effort ever did? Think about that. You gave attention, nothing. You gave time, nothing. You gave energy, nothing. But when you removed yourself, now there's a reaction. That's not coincidence. That's pattern. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. Because the truth is uncomfortable. People don't respond to how much you give. They respond to how much you withdraw, not because they're bad, because they're human. And human nature has a bias. It does not respect what is constantly available. It questions what becomes scarce. That's why chasing never works. The more you move toward someone, the less they feel the need to move toward you. The more you explain yourself, the less they feel the need to understand you. The more you try, the more relaxed they become, until one day, you stop. And that's when everything shifts, because now, they can feel your absence. And absence creates something effort never could: pressure. The kind that sits in silence, the kind that makes people think, the kind that forces them to notice what they were taking for granted. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. Marcus Aurelius didn't teach chasing. Epictetus didn't teach explaining. Seneca didn't teach reacting. They taught something far more powerful: self-control. Because the moment you stop trying to control others and start controlling yourself, you become different, calmer, more precise, harder to ignore. And that's what this is about. Not games, not manipulation, not revenge. Power, the kind that comes from within, the kind that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't explain, the kind that simply stands and lets the world adjust. So if you've been feeling ignored, if you've been giving more than you receive, if you're tired of chasing something that never fully comes back, this is your turning point. Because from this moment forward, you don't move the same way. You speak less, you react less, you chase less, and you start valuing yourself more than anyone else ever has. Now, to understand how to actually do that, you need to see what's really happening underneath all of this. This isn't random. It's not luck. It's not timing. It's not they suddenly changed. There's a mechanism behind it, and once you understand it, everything becomes predictable. When you chase someone, you remove uncertainty. They know you're there. They know you'll respond. They know you're not going anywhere. And the moment certainty is high, effort drops. Not because they decided to disrespect you, because there's no tension left, no curiosity, no risk of loss, no need to move. You've made yourself guaranteed, and human nature does something dangerous with guarantees. It relaxes around them. But silence does the opposite. Silence removes clarity. It creates space. And in that space, something starts to build. Questions. Why did they stop? Did something change? Are they moving on? Did I lose them? That uncertainty creates attention. That attention creates pressure. And pressure creates movement. Not because you forced it, because you stopped interfering with it. This is why absence feels heavier than effort, because effort is expected. But absence breaks the pattern. And when patterns break, people wake up. The Stoics understood this at a deeper level. Epictetus didn't focus on controlling others. He focused on eliminating dependency, because dependency is what drives chasing. You don't chase when you're full. You chase when you feel like you need something back. Attention, validation, reassurance. And the moment you need those things, you lose leverage. Because now your behavior becomes predictable. You respond quickly, you explain too much, you tolerate more than you should, all in an attempt to maintain connection. But connection built on imbalance never holds. Seneca warned about this in a different way. He said most people suffer not because of what happens, but because of how attached they become to outcomes. That attachment creates urgency, and urgency creates mistakes. You speak when you should stay silent. You react when you should observe. You chase when you should step back. Not because you're weak, because you're trying to control something external by sacrificing something internal. And that's where power gets lost. Marcus Aurelius simplified it. You don't control them, you control yourself. That's it. And once you shift your focus from them to you, everything changes. You stop chasing reactions. You stop explaining your position. You stop trying to fix what isn't yours to fix. And in that space, you become stable, grounded, harder to move, because now your actions are no longer driven by their behavior. They're driven by your standards. And that's where real power starts. Not in what you say, not in what you do, but in what you refuse to do, refuse to chase, refuse to react, refuse to lower yourself. That restraint is what creates presence, and presence is what people feel, even when you say nothing. Now, this is where most people get it wrong. They think silence is passive. They think stepping back is weakness. They think not reacting means losing. But the opposite is true, because when you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. And when you stop being controlled, you start becoming unpredictable. And unpredictable people are powerful, which is why from this point forward, everything shifts. Because now it's no longer about understanding the pattern. It's about breaking it. From here, you don't move the same way anymore. Principle 1, stop chasing, reclaim power. Stop chasing. Not later, not gradually, now. Because every second you spend chasing someone, you are moving in the wrong direction, not just physically, psychologically. When you chase, you place them above you. You wait on their reply. You adjust to their timing. You prioritize their attention over your own direction. And without realizing it, you shift the balance. They become the center. You become the one orbiting. That's the real problem. Not that they ignore you, but that you've made their response more important than your own path. And here's the truth most people avoid. Chasing doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. Fear of losing them. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough without them. And people can feel that, not consciously, but energetically. They feel the pull. They feel the urgency. They feel that you need something from them. And the moment they feel that, respect drops. Because need creates pressure, and pressure pushes people away. Epictetus said it directly. If you depend on something outside yourself, you are not free. So ask yourself honestly, are you choosing them, or are you depending on them? Because those are not the same thing. Choice is calm. Dependency is urgent. Choice says, I want you. Dependency says, I need you. And people respond very differently to each. When you chase, you show dependency. When you step back, you reclaim choice. And that's when everything shifts. Not because you're playing a game, because you've removed the pressure. Now there's space. Now there's uncertainty. Now they have to move if they want to close that distance. But here's the key. You don't step back to make them chase. You step back to stop losing yourself. That's the difference. Because if you step back just to get a reaction, you're still controlled by the outcome. You're still focused on them. Real power is different. Real power says, I move forward regardless. You build your life. You focus your energy. You invest in your growth. Not to prove something, but because that's where your attention belongs. And something else happens when you do this. Your time fills up. Your mind clears. Your focus sharpens. You stop checking your phone. You stop replaying conversations. You stop waiting. Because now you're occupied with something real. And the more real your life becomes, the less space there is for chasing. So here's the rule. If they meet you halfway, good. If they don't, you keep moving. No hesitation, no overthinking, no looking back. Because the moment you stop chasing, you stop lowering yourself. And when you stop lowering yourself, you start becoming someone different, more stable, more grounded, more respected. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped giving it away. And that leads directly into the next level of control. Because once you stop chasing, you need to master what comes next. Principle 2, master silence, emotional control. Now that you've stopped chasing, something else will try to pull you back. The urge to react. You'll feel it. When they take too long to reply, when they act distant, when something feels off, your mind starts moving fast. Should I say something? Did I do something wrong? Should I fix this? And before you even realize it, you're about to respond, not from clarity, from emotion. That's where most people lose their power, not in what happens to them, but in how quickly they react to it. Epictetus said, if something can provoke you, it controls you. Read that again. Because this is where the shift happens. If their behavior determines your reaction, then they are leading the interaction, not you. And reacting feels strong. It feels like you're doing something, like you're taking control. But it's the opposite. It's exposure. You reveal your triggers. You reveal your urgency. You reveal exactly where you can be moved. And once that's visible, it can be used. That's why silence matters, not as avoidance, as control. Silence gives you space. Space to observe, space to think, space to decide your next move, instead of reacting automatically. Seneca believed that true strength is composure, not loud reactions, not emotional responses, but the ability to remain steady. When everything inside you wants to respond, that's discipline, that's control. Because in that moment, you're not being driven by emotion, you're choosing your action. And that changes everything. When you master silence, you become unpredictable, not unstable, controlled. You don't respond immediately. You don't explain everything. You don't react to every shift in behavior, and that creates something powerful, uncertainty. The other person doesn't know where you stand. They don't know how you feel. They don't know how to move you, because you didn't give them a reaction to work with. And that removes their leverage, because most people rely on predictable responses. They expect you to reply fast, you to explain, you to chase, you to react. And when you don't, they feel it, not as rejection, as loss of control. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He didn't respond to everything, not because he couldn't, because he understood that not everything deserves attention. And that's the key. Silence is not about saying nothing. It's about choosing what deserves your energy. So before you respond, pause. Ask yourself, does this even deserve my reaction? Most of the time, the answer is no. And when you stop reacting to everything, your energy stays intact, your focus stays clear, your position stays strong. Because now, you're not being pulled in every direction. You're centered, and centered people are hard to move. So don't rush to respond. Don't feel pressured to explain. Don't assume silence makes you weak, because sometimes silence is the strongest move you can make. It shows control, it shows restraint, it shows that your emotions don't control your behavior. And once people see that, they stop trying to provoke you. Because there's nothing to grab onto, nothing to trigger, nothing to move. And that's where real power begins. Not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. Now that you've reclaimed your reactions, the next step is even more important. because silence alone isn't enough. You need to become something else. Principle 3, build your value, become rare. Now that you've stopped chasing and you've stopped reacting, there's a space that opens up, time, energy, attention, and most people waste it. They keep thinking about the same person, replaying the same conversations, checking the same notifications. Physically, they stopped chasing. Mentally, they're still stuck. That's where progress breaks. Because stopping is only step 1. You have to replace that energy, and this is where everything flips. Instead of focusing on them, you start building yourself. Because here's the truth, most people never say out loud. People don't value what feels common. They value what feels rare. And when you are always available, always responsive, always there, you become predictable. And predictable becomes replaceable. Not because you lack value, because you're not expressing it. You're overexposed, always present, always reachable, always reacting, and over time, that lowers your perceived value. Seneca said, "Begin at once to live." Meaning, stop waiting. Stop waiting for someone to notice you. Stop waiting for someone to choose you. Stop waiting for someone to come back. Because while you wait, you're not building. And if you're not building, you're staying in the same position, looking outward instead of upward. So here's the shift. You redirect everything. Your focus goes inward. Your energy goes into growth, not for them. For you, you train your body, you sharpen your mind, you build your skills, you create something real. And something happens when you do this consistently. You become occupied, not distracted, engaged. Your life starts filling up with things that matter. Your schedule tightens, your priorities sharpen, your standards rise, and naturally, you stop caring about things that used to drain you, not because you forced it, because you outgrew it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, focus on your work, not on what others are doing. That's the discipline, because the moment you shift your attention back to them, you lose momentum, you fall back into the same pattern, watching, waiting, wondering. But when you stay focused, you move forward. And forward motion creates something powerful, progress. And progress creates confidence, real confidence, not the kind that comes from attention, the kind that comes from evidence. You know you're improving, you know you're building, you know you're becoming something stronger. And that changes how you carry yourself. You speak differently, you move differently, you decide differently. Because now your value isn't based on who notices you, it's based on what you're becoming. And that's rare. Not because people can't do it, because most don't. Most stay focused on others. Few focus on themselves long enough to evolve. And those who do stand out. Without trying, without announcing, without chasing. So don't try to prove your value. Build it quietly, consistently, relentlessly, until your life becomes too full to notice who left. And once that happens, you reach a new level. Because now, you're not reacting, you're not chasing, you're not waiting, you're growing. And growth makes you harder to shake. But there's still one thing that can break that. If you don't control it, your emotions. Principle 4, control your emotions, inner authority. This is where everything is tested, not when things are calm, not when everything is going your way, but when something triggers you, they ignore you, they act cold, they say something that hits, and immediately you feel it, that surge, anger, frustration, confusion. Your body reacts fast. Your mind starts building a response. You want to say something, fix something, release something. That's the moment. Because what you do right there decides everything. Most people react. They send the message. They defend their position. They explain their feelings. And in doing that, they give everything away. Their emotional state becomes visible. Their triggers become obvious. Their control disappears, and once that happens, they're no longer leading, they're responding. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it." That's not just philosophy, that's strategy, because you cannot control what someone does, but you control how much access it has to your internal state. And that's where authority comes from. Not from what you say, from how steady you remain. When you control your emotions, you control your direction. When you don't, you get pulled into arguments, pulled into reactions, pulled into situations that don't serve you. And once you're pulled, you lose positioning. Because now your behavior is being dictated externally. That's the loss. Not what they did, what it made you do. Seneca warned that most suffering comes from overreaction, not the event itself, but the meaning you attach to it and the speed at which you respond. So here's the discipline: slow down, not physically, internally. When something hits, pause. Don't respond immediately. Don't act on impulse. Don't try to resolve it in the moment. Let the emotion pass through. Because emotions are temporary, but actions stay. One message, one reaction, one impulsive decision can undo everything you've built. Not because it was intentional, because it was uncontrolled. Marcus Aurelius trained himself for this daily, reminding himself, stay steady. No matter what happens externally, maintain control internally. That's inner authority. When your emotions don't dictate your behavior, you become stable. And stable people are hard to manipulate because there's no entry point, no reaction to trigger, no weakness to exploit, no instability to use. You remain centered, and that center is what people feel. Even without words, they notice it. Because while others react, you stay composed. While others escalate, you stay controlled. While others lose balance, you hold it. And that creates something powerful. Respect. Not demanded, felt. So the next time something triggers you, remember, you don't have to react. You don't have to respond immediately. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to stay in control. Because control is what keeps your position intact. And once your emotions are stable, you're ready for the next level. Because now, it's not just about control, it's about structure. Principle 5, set hard boundaries, respect framework. Now that you control your reactions, you need to define your limits. Because control without boundaries still leaves you exposed. Most people don't lose respect in one moment, they lose it slowly. By allowing things they shouldn't allow, letting comments slide, letting behavior repeat, letting people cross lines without consequence. And every time that happens, you send a message, not with words, with tolerance. You teach people this is acceptable. And once something becomes acceptable, it repeats. That's the pattern. Not because people are intentionally trying to disrespect you, because you never stopped it. That's why boundaries matter. They're not about controlling others. They're about defining what you accept. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That includes this. You don't control how people behave. You control what behavior you allow into your life. That's your authority. And most people avoid using it. Because boundaries feel uncomfortable. They create tension. They risk conflict. They can push people away. So instead, people stay silent. They tolerate. They adjust. They lower their standard to maintain connection. But that connection becomes weak because it's built on compromise. And over time, that compromise turns into resentment. Epictetus understood this clearly. If you allow something once, you signal that it's permitted. And once it's permitted, it becomes expected. So here's the shift. You stop negotiating your standards, not aggressively, not emotionally, calmly, quietly, firmly. You don't need to explain everything. You don't need to justify your limits. You don't need to convince anyone. You just act accordingly. If something doesn't align, you step back. If something crosses a line, you remove access. If something repeats, you stop engaging. No drama, no speeches, no emotional reactions, just clarity, because boundaries are not loud. They are consistent, and consistency creates respect. Not what you say, what you maintain. Seneca warned that when you try to please everyone, you lose yourself. And boundaries prevent that. They protect your time, they protect your energy, they protect your direction. Because without boundaries, everything becomes negotiable. Your attention, your availability, your priorities. And once everything is negotiable, nothing holds value. So here's the rule. Your time is limited. Your energy is finite. Your focus is valuable. Not everyone gets access to it. And the moment you start acting like that, people notice, not because you said anything, because your behavior changed. You're less available, less reactive, less tolerant of what doesn't align. And that creates a filter. Weak connections fade, strong ones adjust. Because real connections don't need you to lower your standards. They meet them. So don't explain your boundaries. Live them. And once your boundaries are in place, something else happens. You start creating space. And that space leads to the next level. Principle 6. Master solitude, independence. Once you set boundaries, you create distance, less noise, less interaction, less distraction. And for most people, that feels uncomfortable because now it's just you. No constant messages, no external validation, no distractions to fill the gaps, just silence. And that's where people panic. They reach for their phone. They look for attention. They try to reconnect with anything, just to avoid being alone. But this is the moment that defines everything. Because solitude is not a loss, it's a test. And most people fail it, not because they can't handle being alone, because they've never trained for it. They've always filled the space, with people, with noise, with distraction. So when it's quiet, they feel empty. And that's why they chase, not because they want someone, because they don't know how to sit with themselves. But the Stoics saw solitude differently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can a person find a quieter or more peaceful place than within themselves." That's not isolation, that's control. Because when you can sit alone, without needing stimulation, without needing attention, without needing reassurance, you become stable, and stability removes dependency. Epictetus believed that dependence is the root of suffering. If you need something outside yourself to feel complete, you're always at risk, because it can be taken, ignored, delayed, removed. And when that happens, you feel it. Not because you lost something real, because you lost something you depended on. That's why solitude matters. It removes that dependency. It forces you to build something internal, your thoughts, your discipline, your direction. And when you do that, you start enjoying your own presence, not tolerating it, enjoying it. You walk alone without needing distraction. You think clearly without noise. You focus deeply without interruption. And something shifts. You stop needing constant connection. You stop looking for attention. You stop chasing, because now you're not empty, you're full. Seneca said, "He who is content with himself is truly rich." That's the level. Because once you reach that, everything changes. You don't attach quickly. You don't tolerate anything. You don't depend on responses. You choose, and choice is power. Because now, you're not interacting from need. You're interacting from preference. I want this. Not, I need this. And people feel that difference immediately because there's no pressure, no urgency, no dependency, just presence. And presence without need is magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract, because you're not chasing. So don't run from solitude. Use it, train in it, build in it. Because the more comfortable you become alone, the harder you become to shake. And once you reach that point, you're ready for the next shift. Because now it's not just about independence, it's about direction. Principle 7, growth over attention, redirect energy. At this point, you're no longer chasing, you're no longer reacting, you're no longer depending. But there's still one trap left: attention. Because even if you stop chasing someone, your mind can still chase their attention. You wonder if they noticed your silence. You check if they viewed your story. You think about what they're doing. And without realizing it, your focus goes back to them. Not physically, mentally. And wherever your focus goes, your energy follows. That's the real currency. Not time, energy. Because you can be physically busy and still mentally stuck. And if your mind is still on them, you haven't moved forward. You've just paused. That's why this step matters. You redirect everything, not away from them, towards something better. Growth. Because growth consumes attention. It requires focus. It demands effort. It replaces distraction. And once you're locked into it, you don't have space to overthink. Seneca said, "While we wait for life, life passes." That's what happens when you focus on people instead of progress. You wait, you observe, you analyze, and time moves without you. So the shift is simple. You stop watching, you start building. Your body, your skills, your income, your mindset. Something real, something measurable, something that moves your life forward, regardless of who stays or leaves. Because here's the truth. When you focus on people, you feel uncertain. When you focus on growth, you feel in control. And control builds confidence. Not external validation, internal evidence. You know you're improving. You see your progress. You feel your momentum. And that replaces the need for attention. You don't need them to notice you, because you're too focused on becoming better. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself, do what is necessary, not what is distracting. That's the discipline. Because attention is easy, growth is hard. Attention feels good immediately, growth pays off later. And most people choose what feels good now and stay in the same place. But when you choose growth, everything compounds. Your confidence, your discipline, your value. And over time, you become different. Not because you tried to impress anyone, because you evolved. And here's the part most people don't expect. When you stop needing attention, you naturally get more of it. Not because you chased it, because you became harder to ignore. But by then, it doesn't matter, because your focus has shifted. You're not trying to be seen, you're building something real. So stop checking, stop watching, stop wondering. Take all that energy and invest it in yourself, daily, consistently, without distraction. Because the fastest way to stop caring about someone's attention is to become obsessed with your own progress. And once that happens, you reach the final level. Because now, you're not attached, you're not reactive, you're not dependent, you're free. Which leads to the last principle. Principle 8, protect your peace, detach fully. This is the final step, and it's the one most people avoid, not because they don't understand it, because it requires letting go, completely. No explanation, no final message, no need for closure, just detachment. Because here's the truth, you don't need them to understand you. You don't need them to agree. You don't need them to validate your decision. That need is what keeps people stuck. Waiting for clarity, waiting for an apology, waiting for something that may never come. And while they wait, they stay connected, mentally, emotionally, energetically. That's not freedom. That's attachment. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks badly of you, don't defend yourself. Let them think what they want, because their perception is not your responsibility." That's the mindset. You don't correct every misunderstanding. You don't explain every decision. You don't fight to be seen. You let people think whatever they want, and you keep moving, because your life is not a debate. It's direction. And every time you stop to explain yourself, you slow that direction down. You give energy to something that doesn't move you forward. Seneca warned that most people stay in situations longer than they should, not because they belong there, but because they're afraid to leave, afraid of guilt, afraid of judgment, afraid of what it means. But staying in something that disturbs your peace costs more than leaving ever will, because it drains you, slowly, quietly, until you don't even recognize yourself. That's the real loss, not the relationship. You. Marcus Aurelius kept it simple. If something doesn't align, remove it. No drama, no overthinking, just clarity. And clarity leads to action. So here's the rule. If it brings confusion, step back. If it brings stress, reduce access. If it brings chaos, remove it calmly, without anger, without explanation, without needing them to understand. Because peace is not something you negotiate, it's something you protect. And once you do this, everything stabilizes. Your mind clears. Your energy returns, your focus sharpens. Because now, there's no noise, no emotional pull, no constant tension, just space. And in that space, you become stronger. Not because life got easier, because you removed what was weakening you. That's detachment. Not cold, not distant, clear. You know what stays, you know what goes, and you act accordingly. And once you reach this point, you're no longer reacting to life. You're directing it, which brings everything together. Now step back for a second and look at what just changed. You're not chasing anymore. You're not reacting. You're not explaining. You're not depending. You're moving differently, quieter, stronger, more controlled. And that creates something rare. Stability, because most people are easy to read, easy to trigger, easy to pull, easy to control, but not you anymore. Now, you pause, you observe, you decide. You don't give reactions away for free. You don't hand out your attention without purpose. You don't lower yourself to maintain something that doesn't respect you. And that's what makes you different, not louder, not more aggressive, more grounded. There's no urgency in you, no need to prove anything, no need to be understood by everyone. Because now, you understand yourself, and that's enough. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's the shift. You stop talking about it. You stop explaining it. You start living it. Every day. In how you move. In what you tolerate. In what you walk away from. And people feel it. Not because you told them. Because your presence changed. Calm, but firm. Quiet, but undeniable. You don't chase attention anymore. You attract respect, not by demanding it, by embodying it. Your presence becomes a privilege, your absence becomes a consequence, and your peace becomes non-negotiable. That's the state, the one where nobody can shake you, nobody can rush you, nobody can control you. Because everything they would use, reaction, emotion, attention, you've already mastered. So from this point forward, remember this. You don't chase. You don't react. You don't explain. You build. You observe. You move forward. And that's how you win, without noise. Now, if this message hit you, don't just hear it. Lock it in. Drop this in the comments right now. I choose myself. I move in silence. Say it like you mean it. And if you're ready to keep building this mindset, to become sharper, calmer, and impossible to shake, subscribe and stay close. Because this isn't just content, it's a standard. And from here on out, you live like it.